just being so touched and moved and having no idea of what so many women experience. And
Good afternoon, everyone. On this Thursday, April 2nd, 2026, I've got all your news for your rush hour ride home. There are updates in the Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively saga, as we await the judge's decision on the motion for summary judgment, essentially whether this case will go to trial, which claims might survive, and which could be dismissed. We also have insights from a legal friend who suggests that, depending on the ruling, it could be a very bad look for Blake Lively. Beyond that, there are a few smaller updates in the Baldoni Lively world to catch you up on. In the second half of the episode, we'll dive into last night's bizarre presidential speech and discuss why our country seems poised to remain engaged in conflict for the foreseeable future. On a related celebrity note, Tom Brady has moved on from high-profile publicist Stephanie Jones, who has been embroiled in the legal drama between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. This is a Page 6 story, though the coverage has been ongoing for months. Jones, of Jones' work, is involved in cross lawsuits alleging defamation and claims that she was being smeared by Now, multiple A-list clients, including Brady, have left her, signaling the center of so much industry drama. Meanwhile, Blake Lively continues to keep things lively despite the ongoing trial. TMZ reports she was spotted at Nickelodeon Universe having fun with a life-size claw game while sporting a Paw Patrol wristband. Whether this was casual or a PR move to show she's keeping it light, it's clear she's not letting the legal battle stop her from enjoying herself. Last week, Justin Baldoni scored a small court win, which sources say has Blake Lively worried. While there were sanctions against Brian Freire, they were minor, more of a slap on the wrist than a decisive victory, but they still mark a development in this ongoing legal drama. The big question is whether this trial could evolve in a way that allows both sides to claim a PR win. My initial thought is probably not, but it's possible. For example, Blake Lively could have some of her complaints against Justin Baldoni dismissed and frame it as the court not believing her, which might play better publicly than going to a jury trial where she could be cross-examined and possibly disbelieved. She could also theoretically win at trial, but based on the evidence we've seen, that seems unlikely. A source told Naughty But Nice that the court allowing Baldoni's defamation lawsuit to proceed is a nightmare scenario for Lively. The further exploration of the case could expose private communications, including emails, texts, and direct messages. This has also caused concern for Taylor Swift, who is aware that if she is mentioned in any of these communications, she could be dragged into legal and PR issues she never signed up for. According to the source, the scope of the case could expand to involve publicists and A-list friends, creating real anxiety. Pro-Lively commentators argue that this may turn out to be a nothing burger. Even if the defamation case proceeds, the judge hasn't yet evaluated the evidence. There's still uncertainty around Taylor Swift's involvement and what role, if any, she played in communications related to Baldoni. Some suggest she may have been overzealous in supporting a friend, sharing text messages or forming opinions without fully understanding the situation. While online communities often conflate different cases and personalities, each situation is unique, and we should judge it based on available facts. Ultimately, it's the jury or judge's responsibility to determine the outcome. A theory circulating among legal analysts is that the case could collapse if the actor loan-out agreement between Blake Lively and It Ends With Us Movie LLC is invalid. If the judge finds that the agreement was never signed and there was no meeting of the minds, it could eliminate many of Lively's claims, particularly the breach of the actor loan-out agreement. Since California law applies only through this agreement, invalidating it would also wipe out California-based labor and discrimination claims. What would remain are federal claims under Title VII sexual harassment, retaliation, and the defamation case. Currently, much of this is speculation, but experts like Golden, who specialize in this area, are monitoring developments. She plans to discuss the situation further once the judge issues a ruling. As for me, I'm just trying to follow along and make sense of it. Like many audience members, I'm not a legal expert, and neither are most of us, so we're interpreting updates as they come. On a personal note, I've been traveling and juggling work with the nearly 2-year-old stand-up shows and limited sleep. It's been hectic, but I'm hoping to be back home by Friday and get some stability again after a month on the road. Pray for my heart, because if we get the judge's ruling this week, I'll be racing home to cover it for you, so make sure you're subscribed. Lately, a lot of people have told me they were auto-unsubscribed from my channel. I don't know why. It could be a glitch, YouTube being YouTube, or something else, but double-check your subscription just in case. Switching topics, we've been covering Donald Trump's recent speech, where he tried to justify the U.S. going to war with Iran. Trump claimed that every single family member of deceased service members told him to finish the job. But that statement has been widely disputed. For example, the father of Sergeant Tyler H. Simmons said that was not true, and they never discussed it. Essentially, Trump is using false statements about grieving families to push a narrative for public approval of a war most Americans neither approved of nor want. This could be considered one of the more despicable acts of misinformation in recent memory. On a side note, Chuck Norris passed away last week. His family shared that he died peacefully, surrounded by loved ones. He was a martial artist, actor, and cultural icon. Remember the jokes about his roundhouse kick, curing cancer, or how Chuck Norris doesn't sleep? He waits. It's a tragic loss, and we honor his legacy. Back to Trump's speech. Caitlin Collins interviewed Democratic Representative Jason Crow to provide a counterpoint. Crow described the speech as a propaganda effort, designed to convince the American public that a quick and decisive war in Iran is achievable. Yet the reality is far different. Oil prices immediately spiked after the speech, highlighting the economic consequences of the conflict. Crow stressed that no American has a clear understanding of the endgame. Trump seems committed to escalating the situation, ignoring guidance from the intelligence community, Congress, and the public. The war has already cost nearly $100 billion, with $2 billion spent daily, 13 American casualties, hundreds injured, and strained alliances. Logistical challenges abound, from aircraft carrier incidents to potential misinformation about events. No one seems certain what is happening on the ground. Meanwhile, the economic impact is widespread. Iran is effectively controlling energy markets, driving up oil prices and profiting while Americans feel the pinch at the pump. Rising energy costs affect everything from food transportation to fertilizer prices, further straining the economy. In contrast, figures like Trump benefit financially from these crises, while ordinary Americans bear the burden. The takeaway is clear. The situation is escalating. Trump's statements and actions suggest a continued push for military action in Iran, and his messaging is often contradictory. One moment he says the U.S. doesn't need Iranian oil. The next, he insists allies must open the straits. He claims victories that haven't happened yet, and threatens further bombing. These moves have ripple effects on energy prices and inflation, creating months-long consequences for Americans. Unlike previous crises, this is not a foreign war between other nations, it's a war initiated by the U.S., with all the unpredictability, cost, and human consequences that entails. They're trying to sell the idea that this war had to happen because the U.S. was allegedly about to be attacked with nuclear weapons, which wasn't the case. Even J.D. Vance questioned the logic, asking what we're supposed to do if terrorists strapped bombs to suicide vests, and sarcastically noting that in that scenario, we might as well cut programs like Medicare to fund the war. Political commentator David Pakman weighed in on Trump's $350 million White House ballroom plan, calling it a total disaster. The New York Times detailed how the ballroom, funded by donors, ballooned from an initial $100 million to potentially $350 million. While flashy, the design is full of practical problems. The grand staircase leads nowhere. Columns block interior views, and the so-called main entrance has no doors. The ballroom itself is enormous, far larger than industry standards for the expected number of attendees, which will make smaller events feel empty. But beyond poor design, the bigger concern is process. Projects of this scale usually undergo years of review, public meetings, and scrutiny. One reason for the ballroom's massive size appears to be a bunker underneath point Trump has publicly acknowledged. While it's understandable for a president to have a fallout shelter, questions remain about what happens after he leaves office. Despite the chaos, there's a sense of camaraderie among those observing and questioning these events. People are speaking out against policies that fail to address inflation, housing affordability, and misguided wars. Many independent creators and citizens are challenging the narrative, promoted by mainstream outlets funded by entrenched interests. And that pushback provides some reassurance about the health of our democracy, even if the president himself continues to mislead. Meanwhile, we continue to monitor the Baldoni trial. Big news could drop any day, whether tomorrow or this weekend. When the judge issues a ruling, we'll cover it immediately. Thank you for following along and for being part of this journey. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.